Hello everyone. So today we are meeting on a Zoom webinar where I won't be able to, I'm just seeing the list of you and you won't be able to see all the attendees, but our focus would be on the presentation and the talk. And if you have any questions, there is a question answer icon over here, Q&A. You can click on it and ask any question that you want. And now I'll just start sharing my screen. And another thing I would like to tell you is that today we might have, in between, we might have two more panelists, the curators of two of the most important museums of Chandigarh, Seema Gera, curator of Chandigarh Museum and Art Gallery, and Deepika Gandhi, curator and director of Corbusier Center. So they'll be joining us in between, and I'll let you know, and they'll share their own experiences regarding paper collection and conservation problems in paper or deterioration problems in paper. So I'll just start sharing my screen now. Now, today the topic is role of humidity in paper conservation. So we'll be talking about water, humidity, mainly as a separate entity, the properties of water and in its liquid and vapor form, something very general to begin with in today's lecture. And we'll talk a little less about paper or cellulose because we have already covered it in our last lecture. And apart from talking about just about humidity and water and its relevant properties, we'll see how they damage, how the water and humidity is a cause of deterioration, various types of deterioration which are because of humidity and water. And apart from that, we'll also see how humidity or water is also used as a treatment material for conservation. So first of all, I'll just jot down the points of deterioration problems due to humidity. The most common kind of problem that we see because of water is tide lines. And if there are fluctuations in humidity, we see a lot of waviness in most of the manuscripts and paper-based objects. Then there are distortions also. If that expansion and contraction is not uniform, then it is not just simple waviness, but a kind of distortion. Then we have stains because of water, and ink or color might smudge because of water damage. Humidity also encourages the microbial growth. So a lot of fungal growth or bacterial growth also can be seen because of excess of humidity or water. Talking about the treatment, humidity used in treatment procedures for these purposes, to flatten a crushed or folded or distorted paper. It can be used to separate paper from its unwanted or damaging backing. It can be used to reduce or remove stains, to reduce or remove tide lines, and to remove the acidic components also. The water-soluble acid components can be easily removed by washing with water. Now here, we have to make a choice between whether the treatment, because the last slide was about the treatment procedures, we have to make a decision that whether we need just humidification or proper aqueous treatment where we are using water and we are using water in the liquid form and we are actually dipping the paper in that water, deionized water. So if we see the first 2 points, flattening and separating the paper, it can be done just with humidification. We don't need to dip the paper. But at times, maybe you need some localized aqueous treatment or complete aqueous treatment also in certain papers. The third point was to reduce or remove stains. Here, we might use the localized treatment or aqueous treatment. And to remove the acidic components, of course, acidic aqueous treatment is much better. And to reduce or remove tide lines, controlled and localized treatment with deionized water is what we go for. So we'll start with the humidity, as I mentioned. Humidity is the amount of water vapor in air, and it is the measure of how saturated the air is with the moisture. But what we use, we don't use a general term humidity. We always use relative humidity when we talk about the museum environment or even the weather conditions, because it is a very nice way of knowing how much moisture is there. And I would just like to define it in a simple way. Relative humidity is the amount of water vapor in air. As we just mentioned earlier, humidity also the amount of water vapor in air. But here, what is important is it is expressed as percentage of the maximum amount that air could hold at a given temperature. And this is again important that the capacity, suppose in this particular volume, as you see the jars on the right hand side, there are some particles shown on the left, in the left vessel, and on the right vessel there are more particles, and that is the 90%. That is 90% at a particular temperature. So at a particular temperature, maybe this is just the 90% of the particles that it can hold. It can hold 10% more, the amount that is in the left jar. So but if we increase or decrease the temperature, this capacity would change. So we have to keep in mind that relative humidity is different at different temperatures. So the 100% saturation point is different at different temperatures. So it can also be defined as the ratio of actual vapor pressure and the saturation vapor pressure, the maximum of it. Now here, this is something to elaborate on what I just mentioned, that it depends on the temperature. Now, if you see this chart, and if you just go at the left bottom, 32°F. This is in Fahrenheit, not in Celsius. At this low temperature, 4.85 grams of water vapor per cubic meter. Now, we always, to keep a standard unit to understand the humidity in one particular volume, we always use it, the standard unit as 1 meter cube here, 1 cubic meter. So 1 meter length, breadth, and height. So if this much volume, if we consider and we compare what is the actual humidity and what maximum it can accommodate. So if we take at 32°F, 4.85 grams, it would completely saturate 1 cubic meter. It cannot accommodate more than it. So it is the 100% relative humidity. It's 4.85 grams water vapor in 1 cubic meter. But if we increase the temperature, suppose we go to 43°F, then the same amount is not 100%, it is 67%. So as you increase the temperature, the capacity increases of holding the water molecules, vapor molecules. So, and we'll see that at 43°F, 100% will become at 7.27 grams in 1 cubic meter. So this is something that, of course, is very basic and we need to understand, because if that particular saturation point, that particular capacity of 1 cubic meter of air, if it is exceeded, what would happen? What would happen if a fixed volume of air at a fixed temperature receives more water vapor than it can accommodate? So I'll go back to this earlier slide. So suppose at 32°F, 1 cubic meter is holding 4.85 grams of water vapor. If we add more, it is not just 4.85 water vapor. If we are adding some molecules of water vapor, then what would happen? So if you add any more water vapor, you will exceed the capacity of air at that temperature to hold water vapor. Thus, for every additional water vapor molecule added, a molecule of liquid will be condensed. Suppose if you see in the diagram on the right, a cube is made. Suppose this is 1 cubic meter, and there are 9 drops shown, I think, and this is the saturation. So if I add 2 more drops, then either those drops would turn into liquid, or if they somehow are they remain in the vapor form, some other 2 will turn into liquid, and this will cause condensation, this kind of accumulation of water, and that would cause wetting. So this is why we are moving from humidity, how humidity might be just causing some waviness and all, expansion and contraction, or how it can also cause wetting. And here, when this comes, first of all, I'll just define what is wetting. Wetting is the ability of a liquid to maintain contact with a solid surface resulting from intermolecular interactions when 2 are brought together. Now, the degree of wetting or wettability is determined by a force balance between adhesive and cohesive forces. Now, what are adhesive and cohesive forces? Cohesive forces are a force of attraction between similar molecules. Like if this is a drop of water, so there are many molecules of water, so different molecules of water are attracted to each other. So the force of attraction between themselves, but where they are in contact with paper, there are different molecules, maybe cellulose or different sizing material, filler or something, or a coating. So the attraction with that in 2 different types of molecules is called adhesion. So we have to see the balance. So if the adhesive forces are more, then there would be a different scenario, and if the cohesive forces outweigh the adhesive forces, then the scenario would be different, and we'll just see how it affects. So the degree of wetting or wettability is determined by a force balance between adhesive and cohesive forces. This is something you will see in the later slides, that it is very relevant to when we talk about paper conservation, and we should all know what we are doing actually. Because many times I have got some queries by somebody saw my video on YouTube or something on a channel and said, yeah, I have got this manuscript and this has got this problem, and should I dip it in water? So I have to tell, no, you can't do it like that. You have to first, decision making is not that simple. The most difficult and elaborate process step in the whole conservation treatment, whatever we do in conservation, is decision making. We have to first do a lot of analysis, see different things, and then we decide something and go with that methodology. So coming back to this thing, we talked about humidity, how it can cause wetting, and what is wetting or wettability. And we talked about cohesive and adhesive forces. So higher the cohesive forces and surface tension, because of cohesive forces, there is surface tension. Cohesive forces are the forces of attraction between the similar molecules, maybe, say the water molecules in this case. And so there's a tension at the surface because they are not in stronger bondage with air or something beneath them, around them. They have more bonding with themselves. So they try to be together. And in this process, they have a tension at the surface. So higher cohesive forces and surface tension reduce wettability. So the cohesive forces between liquid molecules are responsible for the phenomena known as surface tension. The molecules at the surface do not have other like similar molecules on other sides of them, and consequently they cohere more strongly to those directly associated with them on the surface. So surface tension, we have some different kinds of definition. There are many more also. We have a formula, the whole physics describing surface tension and all. But here I have taken two very simple definitions of surface tension. Surface tension can be defined as the property of matter by virtue of which the free surface of the liquid at rest behaves like a stretched elastic membrane having contractive tendency. So the surface of a liquid at rest behaves like a stretched elastic membrane. So we'll see certain experiments where a more dense or heavy object is not, it doesn't sink in the water, but it floats because of this, because it cannot break that, its surface is spread and it cannot break that, the membrane, the elastic membrane kind of thing at the surface. Now, the tension experienced by molecules on the surface due to attractive or cohesive forces is called surface tension. So you can define in either way, simpler or in terms of forces. Now here you can see two pictures on the top right. I just took a drop of water on paper, a normal paper. These pictures are taken just yesterday for this presentation, and I took a drop of with a similar dropper, of ethanol. And when I put the drop of water on paper, it formed this kind of spherical thing. And ethanol, it spread immediately. It wasn't forming, it wasn't lying there as a liquid anymore. It was all absorbed by the paper. So we talked about surface tension, the elasticity, the tension in the water molecules, and this affects the wettability. We talked about wettability earlier. So different liquids have different kind of surface tension and hence different wettabilities. If the surface tension of a target liquid is large, like in water, it is more as compared to ethanol, the liquid will be apt to be repelled by solid surfaces. Contact angle results larger and wetting becomes worse. So it cannot wet the paper immediately. Though after a few minutes, it was spreading, it was going inside and the size of the sphere was getting smaller. Now, if the surface tension of a target liquid is small, like in ethanol, the contact angle is small, the liquid will allow to wet over the solid surface and contact angle results smaller. So wetting becomes better. It will contribute better spreading and permeability. So this is what we did yesterday in our lab just for an experiment. We had some waste paper from old books or the collections that came and the pieces which were belong nowhere. So we took some of them and we put a drop of water on all of them. So the top drops on each of the paper is this one, the right, extreme right is white, it is the new paper. And second from the right, there are two pieces because we didn't have a longer, this kind of brittle paper. So the top, the drops on all of these papers are of water. And the lower ones over here, if you see, I'll try to take the laser point. So this one is water, and this one, I'll take, I think, the pen. That would be better. And this one is ethanol. So it just spread immediately. And this one is ethanol. This one is ethanol, this is ethanol. So ethanol is spreading better, permeability is better. Water has more surface tension, so the wetting property is not as good as ethanol. So this we are seeing, but we see in different papers, the type of paper also affects the wettability. The extreme left paper was thinner and less brittle and very old. I think the oldest among these, but it had some kind of coating. In earlier days, these days also we do use sizing material in paper manufacture, but earlier days the starch was the main sizing material in the earliest kind of paper manufacturing processes. And this paper seemed to have a coating, a hydrophobic kind of coating, because of which the water remained there as a drop for the longest period of time. And it couldn't be wet so easily. Now, surface tension in water. Here I have added another picture. This also we took yesterday. The first is water drop, and the second is ethanol, and third is water and ethanol mixture. And here you see there is a little water left in the form of drop, and rest is spread. So it is something in between these two. And so let's see, because of the relatively high attraction of water molecules to each other through a web of hydrogen bonds, water has a higher surface tension than most other liquids. Surface tension is an important factor in phenomena of capillarity also. Water has a high surface tension because it is strongly attracted to itself. However, if you add alcohol, like we have done in the last picture on the top right, instead of water interacting only with one another, with other water molecules, it now interacts less strongly with alcohol, because some of the molecules are alcohol now. So not all the water molecules are attached to all other water molecules only. Some of them are alcohol, and the surface tension of the mixture will be lower. So ethanol lowers the surface tension and improves the wetting ability. So in our lab, when we try to humidify some paper and do the aqueous treatment, we first spray it with ethanol water mixture, and we take different ratios, like we take 50-50 of ethanol, 50% of water. And then if more of water is required, we don't straight away go to the water, 100% water. We move to 75-25 ratio, and then maybe, because some of the water stains are very stubborn, and water stains can be treated with water itself. Only water will be able to move them from there. So this is a table showing different liquids that we use. Some of them we use ethanol, acetone, and water, and their surface tension. So water is has the highest surface tension, and the lowest is of N-hexane, but ethanol also has quite a less surface tension. So we are talking about humidity, water, and how humidity can cause wetting, and how surface tension also affects wetting, and how it can be improved by manipulating the mixture that we are using. Now, apart from this water, I said we'll talk little less about paper, but I would like to mention two things. That paper is mainly cellulose, but not exactly cellulose. Otherwise, it would be very rough, and we won't be able to write properly. The ink would be absorbed very quickly, and it would move here and there. So it would smudge, and so various sizing materials have been added. Not just the sizing material, there are other things also that are added to during paper manufacture, but we are just focusing on the sizing material. And first I'll talk about cellulose. In cellulose, I would just like to mention, in the upper diagram here, you see there are two areas. The lines are all cellulose chains, but there are areas where they are not very compact. And this area is called amorphous or disordered region of cellulose and fibers, and this, which is more symmetrical, tightly packed, is the crystalline or the ordered region of cellulose. So the water affects these two regions a little differently. So wetting is a little different in these two regions, And another thing I would like to mention is that in the lower diagram, these are two cellulose chains, and you have to just see why they are so attached to each other, the cellulose fibers, the cellulose chains rather. They have so many OH bonds, and whenever there are OH bonds, there is a negative tendency at the oxygen atom, and it will form hydrogen bond with the other area of the second cellulose chain. So there are so many hydrogen bonds which are intramolecular within the chain and with the other chain. So that's why they are so very tightly packed in these regions of ordered or crystalline region and other regions also. So the two important attractive forces within the cellulose fiber are intramolecular hydrogen bonding and intermolecular hydrogen bonding. So we'll see when water enters, these hydrogen bonds between two chains would be broken. And instead of forming bond with each other, they'll form some hydrogen bonds with water because it is also HOH. So it also has OH group and H positive group. So the hydrogen bonds would be formed with water molecules. So it becomes a little, the stiffness is lost. Now the sizing material. Starch was the oldest sizing material used in paper manufacture. Then for a long time, gelatin was being used, animal gelatin, and then rosin was used in paper manufacturing. But let's see about this. Sizing material is intended to make paper more suitable for printing. It also makes printing paper less durable and poses a problem for preservation of printed documents. So, though it was intended for a good purpose to make it more suitable for writing, it is also making paper less durable and poses some preservation problems. Now, by 1850, rosin size had come into use, and unfortunately, it produces a chemical action that accelerates the decomposition of even the finest papers. So even the best kind of paper, if we manufacture, if it is having rosin as a sizing material, it will start a chemical reaction, a chain reaction kind of thing, which we started in the last lecture, acid hydrolysis. So in the field of paper preservation, it is known as acid hydrolysis of cellulose and related carbohydrates and this is one of the key factors responsible for degradation of paper during aging. So the sizing material, these days we have better options. We are no more using just sizing material as such. Now, so this was all about water, humidity, the wetting, and how we can improve the permeability and wetting by adding ethanol, and a little bit about cellulose, that how cellulose interacts with water, how it becomes softened in water, and how the sizing material can affect the wetting also. It will, of course, in presence of water and rosin, the acid hydrolysis would be faster and rather in humidity. And it also affects the wetting property because some of the coatings done to make the paper glossy or to improve its other properties, some coatings are added, and some are hydrophilic and some are hydrophobic. So according to the coating given to the paper, the wettability would be different in different kinds of paper because of the because of the fillers or the sizing material added to the during the paper manufacture. Now, the second topic that we'll be covering this today is deterioration problems due to humidity. Now, first and the most common one is tide lines and distortions. You can see both these things in this particular picture. Second is ink smudging, paint smudging also, watercolor paints can be damaged, and mold growth. Now, this is the problem because of the frame. And this, again, we have to understand that this is very interesting case where I got this painting because they were very worried that all other paintings were okay. They had some 6, 7 such paintings, frames in a similar way. And this one got damaged so badly. It's all mold growth within the frame. Now, then when I visited the place, that the wall on which this was hung was an exterior wall. And that room was also just outside the main building. And in our country, we have a good amount of monsoon rains and all. And it was getting wet, but there was no. So one thing in framing we have to understand: if there is no circulation of air or of something, we haven't created some kind of process which can get rid of the excess of humidity. In such a closed system, there are ways of entering the microenvironment within the frame, but there's no route to exit, just like a valve, which ensures one-way movement of blood in our arteries. Similarly, here, the water can enter through various openings or gaps in the glass and the wood and all, but there's no exit. So the humidity is trapped inside, and of course spores are everywhere. They have the food material in the form of paper, and they have got the humidity, so mold will grow. Another such example, this is the same one, heavy mold growth. The other example I think I missed putting in the presentation. Now, these were the damages that we generally find. The stains, I haven't put the picture of a stain, ink smudging, tide lines, distortions. So next is use of humidity in the treatment in paper conservation. Now, when we feel that humidity is required for various reasons, and maybe say flattening. Flattening can be done by aqueous treatment also, by dipping the paper, and then it will get a proper moisture. It will be flattened, and then putting it under pressure after drying, and we can change the blotters while under pressure to dry it further. And we can also do that with mild humidification, but it is different. It is different case to case. It depends on the paper, and it depends upon the extent of damage, and maybe other things like the adhesive, whether it is water soluble or not. That also we have to test first. So, like to flatten a crushed or folded or distorted paper, we can use humidification as well as the aqueous treatment. And to separate paper from unwanted damaging or damaging backing, we can use humidification as well as aqueous treatment. We'll take some cases and we'll see how these things are done. Now, this was a collection of drawings, and they're different. Like they're not similar in the material, the paper, and the printing material. Some of them are blueprints, some are white prints, and some are simple paper. They are normal kind of prints. So, but they were kept in at the same place and in similar conditions, and they were in very bad shape. So, of course, we have to take the decision of treatment after a lot of analysis and talks with the owners, the custodians of these were very important documents. So after all those discussions, it was decided that initially the first thing that we'll do is we'll dry clean them and flatten them. Okay. So And we had to, most of these documents had to be humidified from both the sides because they were very brittle, so softening from one side wasn't possible. But some of them had to be humidified from one side only. We'll discuss about that also. And some of them needed humidification, mild humidification wasn't sufficient for them. They needed a mist of moisture. So let's see. And this is another case. We'll talk about that again in the later slides. I'm just going through various kinds of damages and how the decision is made that what we'll do in this. In this particular case, of course, dry cleaning is done in the documents, and humidification from one side was decided because these are photographs. These albums had photographs as well as documents, printed documents. And the photographs, some of them we found were sensitive to water. So we didn't want to damage them. So we did it because the main purpose was not de-acidification or something. We didn't want to take out anything from the paper of the photograph, but we just wanted to detach the photograph from the backing of the album page. So we just wanted to soften the adhesive which was joining these two things. And that could have been given easily from the bottom. And this one, another very interesting, I think this was a collection of such paintings, incomplete paintings, sketches. Some portions are painted, and so they are incomplete. And these were shown when I went to on a usual tour for some conservation work. They showed me these paintings, and they said, can these be rescued? Can these be taken out? Because they are pasted on a backing brown paper. The adhesive is so acidic, you can see it has turned brown and it is visible. And paper is so thin, and backing paper is thicker than this we talked about in last lecture. So, and they were badly stuck, and they were getting these sort of wrinkles and all. So I did, one of them I took and I did it in front of them and removed the backing successfully. And then I had put that the sketch under pressure, and I think it would be flattened by now. I should have taken a picture from them. I'll do this in coming days. And even while giving the humidity, it had flattened a lot. And but the next day I had to travel back. So I don't know if they have framed it now or not, but we successfully removed the backing from this. And dry cleaning we just did with the brush so that there's no superfluous dirt over the painting or on the back or any spores. And we did humidification, we gave humidification from one side. I'll be showing all these things. And another case, again, decision making here, simple humidification wasn't sufficient. It was too brittle. You can see, if you see at the bottom here, it's already breaking, splitting. The paper is splitting. It is very acidic. And because of the wrong framing. Earlier I mentioned if the framing is not good, the moisture will enter in, but it won't be able to escape out. And because of that, in that painting there was mold growth. But here there's another problem. This board is very acidic, and this paper, when we took it out from the front, it is off-white, light, not exactly brown, but at the back it was like this kind of brown because of this wooden this board in the frame, which must be having a high. Wood is always releasing certain organic gases which are acidic, and maybe it also had some lignin. So here aqueous cleaning was required, but we cannot just simply put it in water. We have to first slowly humidify it with a mist, or maybe with the swins, like we'll be talking about how the slow or mild humidification is done. So use of moisture for flattening, first of all. We have already discussed the various decisions, and we have discussed that what are the problems and this one. The various reasons for humidification or aqueous treatment. So the first one is flattening, to flatten. So that I take now. So use of moisture for flattening. Hi Seema, I'll take a break and I would just like to see, I'll stop sharing the screen. Let's see the attendees and the panelists. So I would like to introduce all of you to Seema. She is the curator at Chandigarh Museum and Art Gallery. Hi Seema.
Hi Namita.
So we have already discussed about humidity and water damage because of that, what kinds of various kinds of damages. And then we were talking about how the decision is made, how to give the humidity in a mild way or in a aqueous treatment and all. And I was just about to start that in details, but I would not, like you to talk about certain things that you experience in the museum regarding paper and the humidity problems.
Namita, we are, a museum where we are not centrally air conditioned. So we do not have the temperature and humidity control, which normally big museums are. And we never even had a study where we could actually know the kind of climate which was inside the museum. They had never been a large scale study which was ever done. And we could see that, especially, I mean, our textiles and our paper, the organic artworks, yes, particularly, we were having problems with those because with the humidity levels high, along with the temperature in the summer months, we were witnessing quite a few insect attack on the on our we could do was that when we would feel that that was the period of the year when such things could happen, we were kind of shifting those objects to the reserve collection just for a safer for safety purposes. So now we have the GCI, the Getty Conservation Institute, which is undertaking a year study to see how the museum, the building behaves. It's a museum which is a heritage building. It is designed by Corbusier, and the whole idea of this 1 year study is to know what temperature and what humidity levels and even pollutants we find in different galleries and during the period of the day, and so different periods of the day. And so the idea is that after a year study, we will know what kind of climate is inside the building, and accordingly they are going to suggest passive measures which will help us to take care of that, because it's not just the artworks, it's even the people who are who come to visit the museum. There are a lot of complaints from them as well, that during the humid months they are hardly able to appreciate the art object because they can't stand at any one single place for long. So I guess in a year's time after the study, and maybe I think we'll be able to share more as to what we have done to make our building a better place for both for artworks and for the visitors.
It's really nice that you have started the study, and hopefully we'll have a better environment within the museum for the artifacts. Thank you so much, Seema, for sharing your experience. And I think you have got some data loggers installed all over the building in various areas. So are there some specific areas? How did you choose where to put the data logger?
They have actually, you see, they have, it's not that they have, uh, particularly selected those areas which are more, where we, like, let us say, which are those which are facing the sun, the west facing, where we know those galleries are hotter than the other galleries. And so they have kept that also in mind when they have been doing it. But generally they have been put all over the museum and in showcases as well, and particularly in areas where we have organic objects, so where it
Okay.
mattered to us more than
Yeah,
the
and the
other. Then they
storage, of
also
course, would have been included. The storage area.
storage you know, it's a 24 hours temperature controlled, humidity controlled storage. So the study definitely, I mean, as it is, doesn't cover storage as much as it covers
The
the
display area, the
display.
exhibition. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you so much, Seema. Anything else you want to share or show us?
I will maybe in a while I'll be able to show you some of the data loggers which have been installed, and there's a weather station which they have which we have installed on the rooftop. And so
Oh,
we have all these data loggers which are eventually connected to the weather station at the top. And I'll see if I'll be able to show you some images of those of the
yeah,
weather station and
sure.
of the data loggers.
Sure. So I'll continue with the lecture right now, and later on maybe I'll ask you to share, or you can just let me know whenever you get the pictures, or you can take us around with
All
the
right.
video with the with the phone. So thank you so much, Seema. I'll just start sharing my presentation again. Thanks a lot. So this is how. Let me just see where I was. So use of moisture for flattening. So I was mentioning that the moisture can be mild kind of water vapor, which we have collected from the evaporation process and all in a chamber, in a closed environment, or it can be a mist. So this is how you can see, this is a brittle paper. If you look at it is curved, it is not straight. And as we'll provide a mist of ethanol and water mixture, you'll see how it's relaxing. It has gone down. So this is how water affects the stiffness of paper. And after this, once it is a little relaxed, it will go for the aqueous treatment. Now, these drawings which I showed was, I again mentioned over there also that some of them just required mild humidity, but some required proper wetting with a mist kind of thing and a spray. So this one, because the folds, and it was important to flatten them because you can see the fold marks were already turning into breakage points, and the paper was torn from these fold marks. So of course, this is a whole video which I'll give you after in the follow-up email. And I've just taken some screenshots of how we documented, did the dry cleaning, and then humidification. In the bottom picture, I'm putting it under the polyester web and wet blotters. So this is another one of those drawings. It is a very important drawing of our National Museum. Hello, Seema?
Yeah.
Can you mute yourself till the time here because I'm going through the presentation?
Okay. Okay. All right.
Once you are there, then
Okay.
unmute. Huh? Thank you so much. So, so are you showing, Seema, are you showing us the data loggers? You have to unmute. Unmute. I can't hear you. You have to first unmute.
Namita, I'll join later when
Okay.
I'm able to. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you can mute it till that time. So This was a very stiff and brittle paper. You can see a closer picture. There's a hole created at this point where it is being folded. And so we first, of course, humidified it mildly through the polyester web. I'll just explain the process. And then we had to give a ethanol water mist to flatten it further. And of course, you can see the before and after picture of this, and a lot of acidity has also been removed. It may be because of the light difference also, but because we did it in our lab, so I remember a lot of acidity was also removed from the this drawing. And this is the video of how we did all these drawings, how we flattened them. I'll just show you from here where I am putting it under a humidification kind of environment, humidifying environment. And here it is, you'll see that there's a mylar sheet. And under the mylar sheet, you'll see these are wet blotters. This is mylar sheet. I have taken out the mylar. This is a wet blotter. And under this wet blotter is, this is a polyester web through which water molecules can pass. The water molecule released from this wet blotter by evaporation can pass through this. And there's a polyurethane web which is transpirable, which can only allow water molecules to pass through. And this is one of the drawings which is being humidified over here. And this is the drawing. It has become softened because of the moisture. And we'll see that under this drawing also we have a polyester web. You can see this thing. And with a transpirable membrane, which is just allowing water molecules and nothing else. And underneath we have another wet blotter from where the water molecules are coming. So I'm not being able to, yeah. So, and some of these drawings, they had watercolor sketch pens used on the top of the print, and we couldn't use any kind of moisture. So here localized treatment was done, and you can see how, and then they were, of course, after flattening, they were packed. They were all sizes A0, A1, 2, 3, 4, and sent back to the museum. So this is one example of that collection only. This is a drawing which is tied like this because it was falling apart. You can see it was torn from many places, but we wanted to save it, and these folds, so that the rest of the fold lines are not converted into tears. So we humidified them, mended also after humidification and drying. And then we press them again under pressure to flatten them further after mending. So this is that drawing which they were even scared of opening because it was just falling apart. So this is the same drawing. Now, localized relaxing, which I just showed in another of the maps. There's another drawing which required this kind of localized treatment, because if you see here, this portion in the center, bottom middle area, this was very brittle earlier, and it would have got detached, means the fragments would have fallen apart after more brittleness have been created because of aging. And it had these things written, tales written in the middle area. So there was ink which was water sensitive, so we couldn't humidify the whole document, the whole drawing. So we did it in this area only. And the same process of mild humidification, this one. Here I have mylar at the bottom, then a polyester web, then the object where we want to humidify it and soften it to reduce the brittleness, and another polyester web and wet blotter again, and then mylar. So this is how we kept it for a while. Then we had put it under pressure, and this is how we did it. I'll just show you. Mylar wet blotter, then polyester web with the polyurethane membrane side upside in contact with the paper. Here the polyurethane is facing down because that is the side which should be in contact with the original paper, then wet blotter, and then a mylar sheet. And this, you can see the result of this process. Rest of the area, it was flattened in a dry way, and this area was specifically treated with a little moisture. And yeah, that is it. Now, controlled use of moisture for removing backing. So this is for the flattening, which we can use the mist and as well as the slow humidification process that I just explained. And I'll again explain the same process, but this time for removing the backing. So this I had earlier mentioned that we just needed to soften the adhesive which is sticking this original document to this backing of the album. And so we don't need to put it from the top. The humidification was required just from the back. And since this document, though, is not having any colors, other documents had water sensitive colors, so we didn't want to disturb them. And even the photographs, some of the photographs were water sensitive, not all of them, of course. Photographs are washed at times, but some of them were water sensitive, so we didn't want to disturb the photographic material on the top, so we are giving the moisture just from the bottom. So this is the wet blotter. Moisture, it will evaporate from the blotter, and it will pass through this web, polyester web, and there's a transpirable membrane on the top of this web which allows water molecules to pass through it, but nothing else. So the water molecules are entering from the wet blotter through the polyurethane membrane, non-woven polyester, to this album page. It is getting a little humidified, and we see, if I showed that video in the last lecture, we could easily, which was earlier so stiff and stubborn, that adhesive had become so soft after this humidification, and we could easily remove. Some of them were a little difficult to remove, but most of them, in most of the cases, the adhesive softened, but it softened just for a minute or two. If we leave it at that point in time in a dry area as in open, then it would immediately get hardened again, stiff again. So this is how we are providing moisture from one side just to detach the. This is another picture. We created this environment like this. We have the blotter at the bottom, then polyester web, and then this original object. And it was covered so that the moisture doesn't just go into the environment, it doesn't escape in the environment, but remains there and softens the these. Now, again, another example that I showed you earlier. This is another such painting with a very thin paper, original paper, and a thicker backing, and aged and brown brittle adhesive. So this is how we did it. You can see how wrinkled it is, and it is stuck to the backing with a adhesive which has now aged and become brown and brittle. If when I took it to, saw it through the light, we could see this, I'll just show you again, writing at the back. So initially I didn't know whether the writing was on the backing or the original paper itself. But later on, I found that it was at the original paper. When I saw the backing, there was a little area from where the backing was lifted, and we could see that the written area was on the original paper itself. It is here. So again, I did the same thing because it was not a planned thing, and that they didn't have the lab, proper lab. So it was a very small lab with very basic kind of things available. But I had my own Swin, the polyester web at the time, and so I used it for humidifying. And this was a wet blotter. Then I'm putting this polyester web, and then the drawing, and I had put another polyester web on the top because there is nothing water soluble that would damage if the moisture comes from the top. So I had put polyester web, non-woven polyester web on the top, and another wet blotter from the top. So because the upper layer was thinner, so moisture would have seeped in better from the upper layer. So from the top. So now the water would be coming from top as well as bottom, the water molecules in the vapor form, and you see the results. Yeah. After a few hours, everything was softened, and the backing layer was getting a little detached from the front layer, and we examined all the sides. I'll just show you the next slide here. So after this treatment, humidification, the adhesive, which looked so stubborn, it was water soluble, so it got softened with the water vapor molecules, and we could easily, not very easily, but of course, as compared to if we would have done it in dry way or with some other solvent, it was much easier, and you could remove the backing. This is, I don't know how, there's, I think I've missed one section header. This was from one side. The earlier was and one side, and we have done this from both the sides also. So this is a mild humidification. First we saw humidification for flattening, then this is for removing the back, and this is also helping in flattening. I'll just, I humidified the original paper again for a little while, and then I had put it under pressure, under the blotters, and it was, it had flattened. Till the time I was there, it had flattened a lot. And now the next step, next kind of humidification treatment that I'll be talking about is aqueous treatment. And I'll be sharing all these videos or links to some of the blogs in the follow-up mail. And let's see this one. This is the same print after fixing the ink. So I'll put the volume down. So you see the mylar, then polyester web is a thin layer of polyester. It's not the fluffy one, which we used for humidification in the earlier cases. And then with a mist, it was relaxed. I'll just show you again. So preparation for aqueous treatment. It is relaxing in ethanol water mist, and now I have covered it with another polyester sheet. Polyester non-woven polyester sheet, and then we can never take the manuscript itself, the paper itself, to water. It has to be sandwiched between the polyester sheets so that we can easily handle it. Otherwise it will break, or because it is very sensitive underwater, it becomes very fragile, it becomes very softened. It tears much more easily if when in water. And then I had put it under blotters, felt, and under pressure. So we did mending also. So we're just concerned about the humidity treatment. Now another one. Now in this case, the damage is also because of water, and the treatment is also by water. And you can see the front and back of a miniature painting. And here another thing which we did and which we discussed in the last lecture was the verdigris. And here you can see wherever there's green at the back, the paper has browned more. And also where there is a water damage, there also the paper has darkened more because of acid hydrolysis. And here there's too much of waviness and distortion. I think it was more because there is sellotape also, which you can't see in this particular image maybe, but because I've treated this, here there was some sellotape, and there was some sellotape at the bottom also, which we removed. So at that area, the paper couldn't expand and contract, and it was expanding and contracting in the rest of the middle area, central area. So more waviness and distortions were because of that restriction in some of the edges. And let's see a closer view of, this is the front, this is the back. Even the glue, I think there was something else also added. It has also darkened. The brush strokes are there. In the raking light, you can see how severe and how deep these creases are, these wrinkles are. So I gave the similar kind of aqueous treatment that we just saw in the earlier video. And now it is flattened like this. It is in the mount board, so you can't see the border. So that is all for today, because I think it is already 1:45 and more than 1 hour. So it would be better if we discuss certain things. I don't see anything in the question answer section, but you can put your questions and we can talk also. I'll just see if you can put things in chat, and I'll see if I can allow your mics. So I'm just stopping the share thing. So there's nothing in question answer. In chat. Okay, and so I'm allowing you guys to talk. You can unmute yourself and you can talk, and I'll go to the gallery view now. So you are all, now you can all unmute and talk if you feel like, if you want to ask anything. Okay, Ramil is asking that how do you remove acidic residue on paper? Is humidifying enough? No, for humidification, we'll need to give the aqueous treatment. So that's why I had mentioned it. Yeah, I'll answer. So we cannot remove acids just by humidification. So for just with humidification. So to remove acid, we need to do the aqueous treatment. Or if it is water sensitive, then we have to use some other means like deacidifying agents, which are dissolved in different kind of solvent rather than water. So as to deacidify, if you're using water-based deacidifying agent, then we have to wash it. And if it is water sensitive and we cannot use water-based deacidifying agent, then we have to use a different solvent, which doesn't dissolve the water-soluble inks and paints. So anything else? And Varsha is also there. Varsha, you can unmute. Today's thing was, I think, not very organized because it was done in a rush, and I wasn't also, my voice was also not very stable. So I apologize for all this, but I think you got some information like various kinds of humidifying treatments that are done, and how we decide. We have to look into so many different things, the paper, kind of paper, whether it would take the water molecules, how it would take the water molecules, the inks, the pigments, and so many factors, and what is our purpose, whether we want to remove the acidity, or we just want to flatten it, or we just want to remove the backing, so we just want to soften the adhesive. So there are different things that for various purposes we have to decide accordingly that what kind of humidity treatment we want to give. Yes, Mobini, you can also unmute and ask if you want, or discuss something if you want. And I'll ask Seema also if she's now ready with the, because it is very important to first of all note the relative humidity of a particular place. Accordingly, we have to plan, we have to take preventive measures also, and this would be discussed in the next lecture, where we'll be talking about the preventive measures, especially for humidity. So they have just started, SEMA has just started with putting the data loggers on, so as to know how the humidity is fluctuating in various months of the year, and what can be done about it, and where it is necessary, because we don't want to have closed systems. We want to have open systems where there's a free circulation of air and there's no stagnancy. And if there are closed systems, again, there should be some way that the movement of the molecules is happening, absorption and relaxation is happening. And it is not happening in the object, but there is some other preferred material for the humidity and all to be absorbed and released. So I'll just ask Seema if she is ready with that.
Hello, Namita ma'am. Varsha here. Hello. Hello.
Oh, hello. Yes, who's there?
Varsha here.
Yes, Varsha.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Nice seeing you after a long time.
Okay, I can't hear you properly. I don't know, your voice is very faint.
Can you hear now?
It's the same volume. Yes, I can understand, but it's very.
I don't know, maybe now is it clear?
I will just check it out. Okay.
No, this is better now. It's better now.
The presentation was very informative, and I'm so happy that whatever you were doing at present, I'm having the same work at my
Lab.
innovation studio.
Hmm.
So I was so happy that I'm really going on in the right way.
Okay. Okay.
I have few queries, but they are very specific. So I will come back to you later.
No, you can ask over here. Also, we have some 10 minutes or so, so we can discuss. I've got another question from Kirat also here. It is about decision making and it's elaborate kind of thing. So I think we can discuss your question.
Actually, I will just jot it down. By the time you can attend someone else and just get back to you.
Okay, okay, yeah, sure. So Kirat, you're asking that my question is regarding decision making when applying these treatments. Just a minute. So regarding decision making when applying this treatment, what are the criteria that help one decide which method of humidification? Kirat, I've just mentioned these criteria. There are more, but for this, they're out of scope of this particular discussion. For this discussion, of course, we have to keep in mind the type of paper, the type of ink and pigments, and what is the problem. So if we have to start from the mildest thing. So if the problem is just of softening the adhesive and nothing else, the paper is already flat and there's no acidity and all. So there's no need to put it under the stress of aqueous treatment. And we can easily soften the adhesive with mild humidification. So it all depends. It has to be from case to case. It is not like a general kind of formula that that is there that we have to follow. But we'll have to study each and every. That's what I mentioned earlier also, that each and every object is different and they have different problems. So we have to study the material, the deterioration problems, and what is the most damaging, and what we can, what minimum, with minimum intervention we can do to achieve that whatever is required. So I think the criteria are these only, like the material, the study of the material, the deterioration problems, and minimum intervention. So anything else, you can unmute and you can always speak up. You can unmute and ask if it is okay with this answer, or is your question a little
Hello?
different? Yes, Kirat.
Yes, thank you so much. I think this was answered very well.
Okay.
I would like to read more into it and see how these treatments would be different, maybe in different climates or different weathers. Would
Yeah, of course, of
weather
course. Yeah, of course.
that
Treatments
was
would,
my
of course,
question.
like if we cannot put anything wet, well, like I'm putting it under pressure, we can't put it in a stagnant environment where there's a lot of fungal problem. There's a heat, heat also. The climate is not very cold, so mold can easily grow. So we have to consider the environmental conditions also. But in any case, we shouldn't put humidity treatment for more than 7-8 hours, whatever the environment is. It will create a stagnant microenvironment and might cause some microbial attack. So it is always advisable not to, whatever the environmental conditions, not to humidify for very long. and not to keep it in a stagnant environment for very long. And more so, it's
Okay,
more
thank you.
important in the hot environment, hot and humid environment. Yes, Mobani. Okay, you can unmute and discuss this thing, Mobani.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Mobani.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible.
Ma'am, I was wondering, like when I interned with you at that time, the ink. I had a query about the ink that was used on the paper, the original document, and so, like, what are the different treatments, and what is like? It's basically regarding the decision-making process again. So, how do you decide pertaining to the ink? What kind of treatment, like? If the humidification you had just mentioned about humidification from both sides based on the ink and the adhesive and everything, so I was thinking if a bit more could be talked about the nature of the ink that is used. Like we have verdigris, so that comes under the type of paint or ink, so if a bit can
Iron
be
Gall ink was
elaborated.
there. Yeah, Iron Gall ink was there,
Yes,
but it is
yes.
not water soluble, so there's no damage with humidity treatment. But the manuscript that I had shown in this particular presentation, I showed one slide where the ink was smudged because of water. And most of the handwritten documents that we have come across in India, at least, they have their recipe written at the end of the book. And
Okay.
they are mostly water soluble. They have used vegetable glue and that we get from plants, and they have used carbon. So they are
Okay.
basically carbon based inks, though we have documents with Iron Gall ink and all also, and the contemporary kind of documents are of course in all sorts of inks. But the old manuscripts that we have come across, they are mostly in carbon black ink and they are water soluble, but their solubility is again different because some are thick, some paper also, it depends on paper also. Some paper has got less sizing material, so the ink goes inside the fibrous structure of the paper. And in some of the papers I've seen that it remains on the surface. The paper is, though it is not very thick, it is thin, but still covered with a hydrophobic kind of coating material. So it is very superfluous. I have come across one of the handwritten manuscripts which was so it couldn't bear slightest of humidity. It was thick and just on the surface. It wasn't going. It had no adhesion with the paper. Very mild kind of adhesion with the paper. So generally, the recipe is given. And if it is not given, you can always test on some unimportant kind of area, some dot or alphabet or something which is not very important, or a margin. Margins are also made by in most of the manuscripts. So you have to study, and if it is very important, of course, in National Museum level, or if we have very important document of national importance or something, of course we'll do all the kind of studies with FTIR or X-ray, inflorescence and all. So X-ray fluorescence and all. So various analysis would be done, and then of course even the binder material, and then we'll come to some conclusion. We can't just straight away go for the treatment of such important document. But if they are not of that importance, they are of course of some importance to the owner and a great importance to the owner, but not of historical value, then of course you can test with simple methods and then go ahead with, then decide. Of course, decision making is really tough and you have to discuss everything with the custodians or the owners of the manuscript or the painting. So
Right.
that's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I had like supporting this question only. So, for example, if while sticking the original document to the backing, due to the adhesion or some other reason, the ink, the written part, it gets imprinted on the backing as well. So while
Mhm.
removing the backing, are there any damages? And if there are damages to the original written material, how to avoid that, or how to avoid the like chance of deleting some of the written part? Like
You're saying that if something is written at the back and it goes to the backing, it
backing,
adheres to the
yes,
backing. Okay.
yes,
Mostly, first of all, if it is not visible from the front, then of course there are methods. If it is something very important, we have methods that we can see beneath the underlying layers also, like with the infrared radiation and all. And these things are done, and rather you should visit. We visited a forensic lab in Delhi, and we saw all various techniques by which we can see underneath. So we could see in behind the backing or behind the original paper also if something is written or not. And otherwise you can't make out like that if it is not very important and it is the front is only important. Even then, the methodology, if you follow properly and if you are doing it very carefully and slowly, once the adhesive softens, it will not take away the ink. Because that's why we are doing it with this kind of method, where and we'll just that's why most of the time we just provide the humidity from beneath, from the lower end, from the backing. So it will reach the top layer at the end only. So if you take it out in time, like the one I showed here, it had a thick writing at the back, and that also seems to be carbon ink, which is again soluble in water. But because we gave a very mild kind of humidity, it just was enough to soften the adhesive, but it couldn't damage the original ink with which was written at the back. So it was very successfully, very carefully done. And if we do things carefully and we know, and with experience also, you learn certain
right.
things. So you can save any writing at the back. And rather, it is not just this document or sketch. There were many more in which both sides were written or painted. And but I can't take everything in this online presentation. So there are so many cases that we can discuss. So you learn a lot in your career. The more you talk to people, and you should share things and you should talk more. Like if you come here or if you are doing internship even online, you can discuss. Like if you, when you ask this question, now I remember certain such cases and I can share them with you. So good question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, how do we, Lou Revilla is saying, how do we safely remove mold and microbes from documents before flattening procedure? Hi, Lou, if you can just unmute yourself, I'll answer live. Is she there? Some of them have left. Lou is there.
She's there.
Okay.
Hi, hello.
Yeah, Lou.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So you're asking about molds?
Yes.
Microbes, okay. There are various ways. In the last lecture only, in one of the sessions, there was another such question and I mentioned anoxia. But it is not successful with all the different species of microbes. It is still under research. But it depends upon, of course, we have to remove the mold first. And we have done it in so many cases. I always come across documents which are affected by mold and microbes. And of course, it has to be removed, but we have to see the solubility of the ink and the pigments. And I think ethanol is the best way. Ethanol sterilizes the paper surface and the mold will not grow. So if you can just remove it first with all the superfluous growth with a dry brush or something, a cloth, and then you can treat it with ethanol. So Yeah, ethanol is very good. There are other things also. I have myself researched on one of the
Small amount of ethanol.
huh?
Do we apply a small amount of ethanol? Do we?
Yeah, very small amount of ethanol. It depends on, we don't have to dip it in ethanol or something. Very small amount with a swab stick. It depends upon the area, or swab stick or brush. And there
And you
was
have to
another.
test the solubility. We have to test the solubility.
We have to test the solubility first. So that's what I mentioned in the beginning, that first we have to test the solubility of the writing material or the paint or pigment, whatever is there. And there are some preventive measures also, because most of them are like when we are killing some microbes. We use fumigation and all. Till now in many labs, fumigation is used even for mold, thymol fumigation and all, but it is not good. A lot of recent research has shown that thymol interferes with certain pigments and inks and the paint pigments. So, and it is not healthy for environment and health also of the person who's treating. So long time back, nearly 25 years back, I think, I was working on a material, a very small white powder-like amino acid, which is water soluble, and it is soluble in ethanol also, and it is neutral. The best thing is that it is neutral because it is amino acid, it has amino group and acidic group. And it controlled a lot of, I tested it on a few species, not all of them. And I tested it on Chaetomium globosum, I think. And it was very successful. So it can, if it is there, if it remains there in the object, it can prevent also. So a lot of research needs to be done, and I still want to do it, complete my research that I started in '95. And about this, it is alpha amino isobutyric acid. So there are other things, but the safest and the mildest that we use these days till now, the conservators use is ethanol. So you can remove it safely with ethanol if it is not, if the ink is not soluble in ethanol. And yeah,
just a swab, no? Okay.
With a swab.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Lou. Anyone else? So panelist, Mobini, okay. And Varsha, are you back?
Ma'am, I think there's one question.
One more question?
Yes,
huh?
yes, I am back.
Okay, which from? Okay. Thank you, Namrata ma'am, for this presentation. I was wondering if a bit can be explained about the ink of the original document and according treatment decided. May I know who is this Mobini's question? This is Mobini's question. Which
Yes,
other question?
in the question answer.
In the question answer.
Yes, ma'am. Varsha has
What
asked.
can be used to improve the flexibility of paper and decrease the brittleness? Varsha, acha. Hi Varsha. So Varsha,
Yes,
it depends on the paper. In certain papers we have seen by humidifying and all, the flexibility is improved. But it is not a universal kind of formula, because I'll share with you one of the research papers that explains this thing, that some of the papers were, they had no effect of humidity or any such treatment to improve the flexibility. Though people are trying, there's still some research also going on, and the best thing is humidifying. That's why we are humidifying. Humidifying itself makes the paper a little flexible, because I won't go into the chemistry how it does that, but I'll share with you the research paper that I have gone through recently, which improves the flexibility of paper, the treatments which improve the flexibility of paper. But it is not universal. It is like, it depends on the paper, composition of paper. What are the additives in it? What is the sizing material in it? Whether it is glossy or has some coating or not, hydrophilic coating, hydrophobic coating. So on various factors. And though we have seen a lot of improvement in flexibility of some brittle paper, and mainly by humidity itself.
So, what could you suggest for the example you show now in your presentation with the blueprints?
Uh,
Did you need to increase visibility of paper, which you had shown in your presentation?
Blueprints I have shown.
Now,
What are you
and
asking?
the maps.
I couldn't hear
That
you.
kind of machine made paper. Yeah,
Your voice
the
is breaking.
maps you
Yes.
maps you showed in the presentation.
Yes. What
Did
about
you do? Sorry.
What about those maps?
Did you need any thing to do with the brittleness for that paper, or the maps or the blueprints?
Blueprints, some of them were not very sensitive to water, but most of them were sensitive to water. So we have to be very careful with them. And so we couldn't humidify them to a large extent and for flexibility and all, though we did humidify very slowly. And some of them required a little more than that, and mending also, but you cannot give them aqueous treatment because blue material is quite water sensitive. So I don't know if you're asking about you want to improve the flexibility or what. Have you come across some blueprint which is very highly brittle? Because I haven't come across any blueprint which is extremely brittle. They were quite brittle, especially when they were folded. So along the fold marks, they were breaking off. But I haven't come across extremely brittle the kind of brittle paper I've shown in this presentation, which was in 2 pieces when I had put the drop of water. So that kind of brittleness I haven't seen in blueprints till now. So I don't think that we need to put them under any intervene too much into them, rather just do the basic things, whatever damaging things are there, and to preserve them in such an environment that they don't get deteriorated further. So the aging is not accelerated or something. So I would prefer the preventive measures for blueprints rather than giving them some strong treatment or just to check, just to maybe test if they can become more flexible or not.
Okay, thank you. And I have got some handwritten manuscripts.
Okay, Varsha?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Handwritten manuscripts written on machine-made paper, 80. They
Hello, your voice is gone. Hello? Can you hear Varsha Mobani? Hello?
Yes.
So I couldn't hear you after that.
It's 80-40 machine made handwritten Sanskrit manuscripts.
Okay.
Sanskrit manuscripts.
So what is the problem with them?
It's brittleness and acidity. So I have used non-aqueous treatment for deacidification, and the ink is not soluble, red and black ink.
Okay.
I had conducted few tests regarding various things and few water stains. So that was locally removed with warm. It gave good results.
Okay.
For removal of stains. Now the thing is, they have got mild brittleness. So
they have
I need to
acquired brittleness
maintain
after
the
treatment.
flexibility. No,
Okay.
Previously only they were brittle.
Okay.
Huh.
So we need to have a look at it, because the brittleness can be reversed to some extent, but it cannot be completely reversed. So we can just give some kind of treatment which can prevent further breakage and all. And without looking at the paper, I cannot suggest anything. But if you want to make it
I
flexible,
can, yeah. Yes.
if you want to make a brittle paper flexible, I don't know the extent of brittleness. If it is extremely brittle and breaking at mild touch, or it is not curling or flipping,
So
then
it's not breaking. It's not breaking. It's curly.
That case maybe
Prevent the further brittle.
okay. So that way it can be, if you have given aqueous treatment, I think it is good enough. Rather than going through any other further treatment. And if you have added some alkaline material to your water, then it would have been already very good. You still have the
What I
brittle?
will do, I will just share a few photographs.
Yeah.
I have good results. I will share photographs of the manuscript on your.
You can send it on my, through email or WhatsApp also.
Yes.
And there's another question from ICKPSC. I don't know the name of the attendee. I have a question. What are the concerns when we have to treat a tinted paper, like treatment with humidity? And so can you unmute yourself and make your question more clear? Tinted.
Yes. This is Sindhu from Intag.
Okay, Sindhu.
Yeah, actually, like when we are working with the tinted papers, so mainly with like for the flattening and all. So when we have to treat it with the humidity or the aqueous treatment, so is there any chances of bleeding? Like I haven't worked, but it's just a question. Like the color bleeding or any such chances will be there, or it's a general question.
You have to test, Sindhu, because I have worked on many tinted papers, and most of them, though I was scared like they might be water sensitive, though they are actually, when they are painted or tinted, they are water sensitive. But whatever papers I have done till now, they were not damaged by water treatment, humidity treatment and all. Even washing was required in some of them, and it was very successfully done without any damage. So it depends, but if it is fresh, it's not very old paper. The ones that I have done, they were from mid 19th century, like 1830s and all. 1830s to 1850s. So they were quite stable. With age also, the pigments or the tints become, though tints are not pigments exactly, but they become more stable. So whatever I have done, they were not water sensitive, but still you have to check. You have to check it on a very small, unimportant area.
Okay, so how about the blueprint, that one, like the one you treated? So was that had any problem with the bleeding, like when you did clean?
Yeah,
like
blueprint, it is very superficial kind of layer, and so it can even be rubbed off. If you rub your finger over it, it will come on your finger. So it is a little difficult to treat, but with mild humidification there was no problem. Most of the blueprints I did with mild humidification through water evaporating through the polyester web. Sorry. So blueprints were rather I've done many blueprints and white prints, and they had no problem with the mild humidity if it is given in a slow and controlled kind of way through polyester web.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Sindhu. Any other question? Mobini, can you see?
No, ma'am, I think it has been answered.
There are 2 questions in the question answer panel. Acha, they are from Varsha. I've already answered them. Okay.
Hello, Namita.
Yes.
Sindhu again.
Yes.
I have one more question.
Mhm.
So this is regarding the prints. It's etching, and then it is like watercolored over it. So it is of 19th and 20th century prints. So like it has stains again. So when we what kind of concerns again related to the aqueous treatment or anything, because
Look, if it is not required, you should not go for aqueous treatment. If it is like it is very highly acidic, only then you have to go for aqueous treatment.
yes, it is highly acidic.
Okay. Then you'll have to fix the, what did you say? It is a print or?
Yes, it's a print,
Okay.
like an etching, and one more we have a print again, like machine made, and then over it, it has watercolor, like painting.
Watercolor. So you can't go for wash then. And deacidification can also be done with the non-aqueous methods. And any other problem apart from acidity that it has got?
Like water stains, they are the main problem.
Water stains. Water stains are removed by water itself, and very slow local treatment you can give. And it won't be with mild humidification or something. It will require proper liquid water molecules, and they can be, I use gels also. I use gels, water-based gels, so that I can just put that plug of gel at that area and it actually absorbs, the stain is taken away or it is diffused. So for tide lines or water stains, I think it depends where the stains are, whether they are on the pigment area where there is a painting, or they're on the edges or somewhere at the bottom. So depending upon the location and many other factors, for water stains, you can use a local treatment in the form of gel, and with brush also, ethanol water mixture and blotter. You can put a little ethanol water mixture and blot it. At the back also you have to keep a blotter, and it is very slow, but it is successful. It reduces the stains. I have done it many times. Many manuscripts have water damaged edges, so we have done it very successfully. You can share in your through emails also. We can always discuss. There's no harm.
Sure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Sindhu. Any other question? So I think I have already answered Ramil's question that it was about some acidity. Any other? So that's all for today, folks. I'm sorry today I was not very organized, but I tried to be there, and Seema is not there. She's not back, so maybe next time, because I wanted you to see some preventive measures also and what all study is done to understand the damage of due to the humidity in the environment. So maybe next time there's another new message. Let me see. Okay, thank you. Thank you all. And I'll be sending another mail with some reference material I couldn't send earlier. I got really busy in last few days, and I'll be sending it in a follow-up mail. And you can ask questions also through email. And I'll discuss the next session also, what the topic should be. You can also suggest some topics. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.